In this video, we will see how to create a pop-up on your website created with Framework360. First, we click on the website section where we can find all the sections to modify our website. To view the site, just click on View Site in the top bar. This is a default site that is created by Framework360 during the setup of your environment. Let's keep this. Let's go into the website section under Pop-up. We will need to click on the top right on the Add button. This is the title of our pop-up. We can call it Homepage Pop-up since we want it to appear on this page. Here we could select Show Automatically if we want the pop-up to appear automatically when the website is opened. Or we can remove it. Show Automatically if we want to decide when to make it appear. Let's leave Show Automatically on. Let's go into the classic visual builder that we often find within Framework360 and click on Add Row. As we can see, in a very convenient and simple way, we can add our content. For example, here we might want to insert an image. Let's find the image block, drag it into the visual builder, and then upload our image. Here we go. We can see that we have uploaded our image. Let's select it, and this will be our pop-up. We can also add a logo, for example, here at the top. And we can center it and give it some spacing from the content below. Below, we could add, for example, another row. And we could possibly put a greeting. It's a demo pop-up, of course, depending on the needs. You can really create any type of content. Here we can write, for example, hello visitor. Let's give it an H1 tag. All right. And for the font, let's make it very large so it's clearly visible. Hello visitor. Let's center it, save the pop-up. Okay, this will be our pop-up that will appear when we reload the page on our website. As we can see, there are other tabs available here. For example, there are conditions. We can choose whether to show our pop-up to everyone, meaning whether to open it for all site visitors, or only to those who, for example, access our website on a specific date or at a specific time. There are really many settings. We can also choose, for example, the brand of the device. As we can see, if the visitor arrives with an iPhone, for instance, with an Apple device, we can clearly make it open only to those who have an Apple device. In this case, we leave it to show to everyone. Below, we can limit the pages on which our pop-up should open. For example, we might decide on the About Us page, or we might decide not to show it on the About Us page. As we can see here, there are these settings. We can also choose to have it open on all pages. Subpages, there is the possibility on Framework360 to create subpages, but now is not the time to discuss it. We can go into the Behavior tab and see that you can choose to show the pop-up persistently. For example, when a visitor arrives on the website, the pop-up opens. But if they change the page, by clicking this setting, it opens again. The goal of showing it persistently ensures that the visitor after a while says, let me see what this pop-up is, and doesn't close it as soon as it opens, which happens in most cases. Therefore, one must always be careful in marketing to use pop-ups appropriately. Here we can choose indeed whether the pop-up should open when the page is opened or even just before the page is closed. How does this setting work? Now we might see it, but fundamentally when Framework360 recognizes that the visitor's mouse pointer exits the clear area of the site page, then the pop-up will be triggered to open. We can see that there are other preferences. For example, there is the option to wait a certain number of seconds before opening the pop-up, or you can decide to have it automatically hide after a certain number of seconds. Here in the Appearance section instead, we can choose whether it can be a simple pop-up, which we will now see opens directly, like a classic pop-up that bounces on the page, or possibly off canvas yet, meaning it comes from the left and enters the page towards the right, or vice versa, meaning it comes from the right and enters towards the left. In this case, we just want to create a simple pop-up. Here we can decide the width of the pop-up, which is by default set 1520. We can decide on the background of the pop-up. In this case, we set it to white, the close button, which we can give a black color, a page overlay that can be light or dark. What is the overlay? It is the background that appears over the entire pop-up. We can see, meanwhile, by reloading the page, our pop-up will appear with our image saying, hello visitor, with all the settings we have given it. To understand what the overlay is, we see that around it, the page content is visible, and it's not very nice, so we can give it a dark overlay. We save. And by reloading the page, we will see that the page will have a dark opacity. By doing so, our pop-up will be more highlighted. Let's move on. Here you can choose a lot of effects. For example, this pop-up is by default set to bounce on the page, as we can see. But if we want it to come from the top and move downwards, we can give it this effect And by reloading the page, the pop-up will come from the top. There are many settings, also effects for the pop-ups exit. If we want it to go upwards when it is closed, for example, we can choose slide, out, up. By doing so, we save and reload. It will come from the top to the bottom when it opens, and will go from the bottom to the top when we close it.